Hello, minasan. Welcome to another Shushoku Cafe video. My name is Kasha, and I run Ikigai Connections, and that includes a job board called Nihongo Jobs. And my co-host here is Dozo.
Hi everybody, this is Takeshi of Quick USA. We are a Japanese recruiting company, and I'm here to support all Japan-related community. Nice meeting you.
Yes, so today we have a really interesting topic. When we talk about going to Japan and getting a job in Japan, it really can be a little overwhelming or confusing to a lot of people. We know that you need some kind of visa to get to a foreign country to live and work there. And so in the previous video, we talked with our special guests about different ways to relocate to Japan, how to get there. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about the visa situation and ways to live there, but keep in mind, this video is for educational purposes. We are not legal experts at all, and we're not going to give you any advice. So please take what we say with a grain of salt and go do your research or talk to an expert about this. So how about we get started? And first, I will quickly ask for an introduction from Corey from Globus. Dozo.
Hi, everybody. My name is Corey. I work for a graduate school in Japan called Globus. I work around admissions, and I know pretty much all the process of starting off with your application all the way to moving to Japan. So it's a pleasure to meet everybody.
Perfect. And how about you, Nick? Give us a little introduction.
Yeah, my name is Nick, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Japan Remotely. And my goal is to answer the question, how do I move to Japan? And through that, we got to talk about different types of ways to live, make money, and be legally present in Japan.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. And now, Takeshi-san, onegai shimasu.
Yes, I have a lot of questions. This is kind of one of the most asked questions from our audiences. So I know that one of the way to go for Japan, to live in Japan, is to apply for some job in Japanese company there in Japan and to get the job to work in there. That's kind of simple way that I understand that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's very difficult to imagine what other choices going to be possible. So maybe first I want to ask for Nick, your company name's Japan Remotely. So is there any way you can work remotely in Japan, or what kind of choices do we have to live in Japan and work in Japan?
Yeah, just, I guess it was last year, they came out with a new Japanese temporary visa called a Digital Nomad Visa. And it's kind of mixed. You can only stay in Japan for 6 months at a time, but during that time, you are fully allowed to work remotely from a company abroad. One nice thing about being in Japan just for 6 months, and I think one of the reasons they did this, is that it's not as complicated for tax reasons. If you are in Japan for longer than 6 months, then they start to think about taxing you locally in Japan. So I think that's one of the reasons they stuck with the 6-month program. But it's nice that you can be in Japan for an uninterrupted amount of time, and you don't have a resident status, so it's not complicated from a tax perspective. If you want to live in Japan and work remotely, that's where it gets a little tricky. Because really, to have a long-term presence in Japan, you need to have some sort of local business presence, unless you've got like Japanese ancestry or something. But that can be something like getting a job, like you talked about. It could be starting a company, or it could be going back to school. I mean, you can do that for up to 4 years. So that's another long-ish term thing that people do. When it comes to working remotely, however, the best way is if you can find a Japanese source to work remotely. And it could there could be a partnership. There are companies called employers of record. can process that kind of international employment and make it so you can be employed in Japan under a standard work visa. So that is one way that people do it. But in general, you need to think within the mindset of those three boxes, whether you're studying in Japan, working in Japan, or being a boss in Japan. And really, being a boss in Japan is not so different from the work visa. You have to be actively doing something. You can't like buy a Family Mart and just like never go to it. You have to work at it.
Okay, that's interesting. So I didn't know that the digital nomad visa, like you can live and work in there 6 months. That's great, because in the last topic we talk about like a first hurdle to go to Japan. It's difficult to study in there. So maybe that 6 months living in there, digital nomad might be a good way to step on the hurdle. And then once you
to a degree, it's the problem with the digital nomad visa is that it's a non-resident visa. So if you wanted to transition to a work visa from there, you'd need to find somebody that's willing to make for you a certificate of eligibility.
Yeah.
The digital nomad visa is not too different from just showing up with your passport with what's called a visa exemption. However, being in Japan for 6 months at a time, if you're in a strategic location, you might find somebody who says, hey, you're really great. You do this work abroad. How about we do something together and I'll sponsor your certificate of eligibility? That could happen. But one of the things that many Japanese employers are hesitant about is sponsoring a visa from scratch and doing that certificate of eligibility, which is why, passing the baton to Corey, doing a MBA first gets you that certificate of eligibility. And from that point, you can pivot and do other things more easily.
That's a great point. I didn't know that how headache is the certificate of the eligibility or something like that. Corey, can you explain to me like how can we get that certificate going for MBA?
Absolutely. So the process, if I explain it in bullet points, is actually surprisingly easy. But let me start off. So you first, as an MBA program, you will have to apply to the MBA program. Once you pass the screening processes, which is a few, I will not go into detail that because it is a bit of a process. But once you pass and decide to enroll, we will actually start filling out the certificate of eligibility for you. We obviously will need some information from you, so it will be a joint process, but we will be the ones championing the actual process. Once we submit it to the Japanese government and get your certificate of eligibility, we'll actually send it to you, and you go to your local consulate and you get your visa. So after you go through the application, it's a relatively simple process of getting your COE, essentially. From there, you are free to move to Japan within the program's length, which we start in September. So you can move usually in August, and you have a full year from there. And with our student visa, actually, you can extend it for an additional year as a job hunting visa. So that's a 2-year visa. In total, a 2-year visa.
Yeah, and as Corey explained, as part of the program, Globus does everything for the certificate of eligibility. And once you have that and you're in Japan, getting a job with that hurdle already passed is much easier. Companies like Amazon or Rakuten or Microsoft, even the big companies like that, it's pretty rare that they will hire somebody from scratch from abroad. You need to be in the country and have already passed that first barrier to entry. So that takes out a lot of job opportunities from people who, are just applying. Excuse me. it takes a lot of, gosh, I've got a cough today. This is tough. It takes a lot of process out to already have that. And that's why it's good to have either something like the JET program, MBA program, teaching English. These people are motivated to get you that certificate of eligibility. Whereas if you were to knock on Amazon's door, they've already got a lot of people that they have that can work for them locally in Japan. So they're not going to go out of their way to make you a certificate of eligibility, unless maybe it's like an internal transfer. That's pretty easy. Or if you have some skill that they really need. But if you're like applying online, they're going to shut you down right away. And they have like a stipulation on their websites that say, you know, only those that are already legally present in Japan. So that's a huge benefit of doing some program where you can get that certificate of eligibility.
Wow. That's where, you know, first of all, I didn't know like there's so many different choices, and then that certificate, how difficult it is to get the certificate, and how grateful it is to get the support from like a Globis, you know, joining there. It's not only for running in there, but if you're thinking about for next step, doing this is like a great benefit. To,
Critical time, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Because I'm so happy that we have those two guests today.
Yeah, this was very interesting. And I think it gives hope to people to see that there are ways to be in Japan. And again, everybody, please remember, none of this is to be taken as legal advice, but it's something to get you thinking. And also, I'm sure things are going to change over time. It depends on, you know, what the situation is in Japan. Currently, we know that there's in September of 2025, we know that there's so much tourism happening after what happened with the pandemic when there was no tourism. So you really have to look at how things are working out in the country, where you are in your life situation. But just keep this in mind that there's options. Just do a little bit of research. Check out these resources that we'll have in the description, and good luck. You know, nothing is impossible. So we hope that this brought you some inspiration, and we look forward to seeing you in another Shushoku Cafe video. So thank you to our guests for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。